My guest today is Mike Flynt, the real life inspiration behind the new movie, The Senior. Now, he attended Sul Ross State University on a full football scholarship and earned a degree in physical education and business. He then served as the first strength and conditioning coach in the Pac 10 at the University of Oregon, supporting 16 men's and women's varsity teams, and he later held the same role at Texas A&M University, overseeing training for 18 sports programs. But in 2007, at the age of 59, well, Mike returned to Sul Ross State University and made history as the oldest starting linebacker in NCAA football. Now, in the senior, nearly 4 decades later, and after being kicked off his team, Mike returns to his alma mater to take the hit that changed everything. Bruised, doubted, nearly broken, he fights for one last shot at the ending, and he still believes is possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the one and the only Mike Flynt and the story of his life on screen in The Senior to the show. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Ward. Thank you for all of those kind words.
Well, I absolutely fell in love with the brand new movie, The Senior, which is a story about you going back to college at the age of 59. Why did you want to go back and try out for the football team?
Well, it was one of those things that was not scripted in any way, form, or fashion. It really was one of those spur of the moment type events. I tell people all the time that not not every journey has to have a destination. I was always in good shape. When I was a strength and conditioning coach, I had a philosophy about my training that I would never ask one of my athletes to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. And so after I got out of coaching, I continued to train. People would ask me in my 50s, why are you still running sprints? I told them I love to do it. I love strength training. Well, then my greatest regret in life was losing my senior year in 1971, being kicked off the team. I was team captain, leading tackler on that team. I was an all-conference linebacker. We were picked to win the Lone Star Conference. I got kicked out during two-a-days. They went 4-6-1. Didn't even have a winning season. And so I shouldered that responsibility and the loss of my senior year. Over that 37-year time period, it just became my greatest regret in life. And so through happenstance, I found out that I still had a semester of eligibility left. And so I walked on and made the team as a linebacker, became the oldest linebacker in NCAA history.
Well, what did the college think that you wanted to take advantage of your last year of eligibility?
Well, they didn't care about what my reasons were or anything else. It was, bottom line for them was eligibility. And Sul Ross had changed from Division II when I had gotten kicked out to Division III, which made a whole new set of rules. Well, then they went by a semester system. And so I had to prove that I still had one semester of eligibility left. And since I was kicked out during two-a-days prior to enrollment in school, I did. I had a semester of eligibility left. And so that's all I needed was one semester.
Well, physically, how did you feel after your first football practice?
Well, I've told so many people that I was so blessed when I was young that I never had any injuries. I didn't have knee problems. I didn't have hip problems, shoulder problems, any of that. And so when I went back at age 59, I was in great shape. I felt great. Um, I'd never played football in a 59-year-old body before. and and I'm telling you, people are going to say, we've heard Mike say this, but it was true. I didn't think there was going to be enough ice in Alpine, Texas to make it through two-a-days. Uh, the recovery just wasn't there. And then I didn't want to look like an old man out there. And so I had to fight through that soreness. and not let it show up in my performance and my sprints and those type things. Constantly worried about pulling something or hurting something else, but God got me through it.
Yeah, well, amen to that. Now, in the film The Senior, it does take us behind the scenes into your personal life. So, how would you describe your childhood growing up?
It was pretty accurately depicted in the movie. My father loved me very much, but I found out later in life through his three brothers that I interacted with more as I got older that World War II changed my dad in a lot of ways. He was in the D-Day invasion and then in the Battle of the Bulge and ended up losing a leg from the Battle of the Bulge. And he brought that mindset into training me there in West Texas. And then you have to understand West Texas. You've got cowboys, you've got roughnecks and the oil field, and then you got football. And so, if you don't mind fighting, there's going to be lots of opportunities. And he trained me to fight from a very young age. And um, it was, he called it boxing, but we were fighting. And so, but it was something that that was an environment that he raised me in, and so it had a lasting impact throughout my young adult years.
So, did you really have a problem with anger, or was it the way that your father raised you that, I guess, created the issue?
It no, it wasn't a problem with anger. It was the fact that I I became my dad always had set rules. In other words, you there would be no starting of fights. You don't do that. You don't start fights. Someone starts a fight with you, you fight. And and the third rule is that when you fight, you win. And it was always about winning. I mean, there were no, I could box, but I could do a whole lot of other things. And the thing about what my dad taught me that was the greatest benefit to me was the mental game. We would sit for hours, and he called it being ready. Years later, I renamed it and called it mind games. But he would paint scenarios about, where I would sit. And if I was with a group of people, you never sit on the inside of a booth. You sit on the outside where you can get on your feet. Uh, what I would do, what I needed to look for, all these type things, different things. And so it wasn't an anger issue with me. There were always problems. There were people that were trying to cause problems. And I wasn't a troublemaker, but I became a trouble seeker because I didn't mind fighting. And if I felt like somebody needed my help, I'd jump in a heartbeat. And there were so many fights that I had that it was an instance where I just stepped in to help somebody else that was being bullied. And so, it was never anger issue with me. It was self confidence in that I knew what I could do. And if I felt like somebody needed my help, I wasn't worried about what the outcome was going to be. That just never crossed my mind, and I never did things out of anger unless it was anger at what someone had done to someone else.
In the film, we really see the spirit of, I guess, finding out who you really are, the spirit of forgiveness in this film. And there's a scene in the movie I want you to explain to us because it's a very important scene. And it's the bar scene with Walker. Um, how true was that scene in your own life, and how surprised were you that he actually apologized to you for getting you kicked out of school? And what did you think about that?
Well, yeah. Spoiler alert. That didn't actually happen. The individual that got me kicked out did express regret after the fact because he ended up quitting the team. I was kicked out going into my senior year again, I was the centerpiece for that whole football team. And the coach, when he was getting ready to escort me out of town, had the whole football team out on the field. He didn't want me interacting with them because he knew that there would be a revolt if they knew I was gone. And so within less than an hour, he had the assistant coaches packing my bags in the room while he was telling me, "Hey, you need to call your dad to come pick you up on the highway." And so the interaction with the individual that got me kicked out didn't take place. He was breaking rules. I enforced it. Problem was, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, the president of the college. I mean, I'd had 10 off the field fistfights, in a 2-year time period. And the president of the college said, "I've heard Mike Flynt's name for the last time." Told the coach, "It's you or Mike." So um, there, there was no interaction with that individual. However, he did contact the school years later and said that he always regretted that I was kicked off the team and out of school because of his breaking rules.
So what was it like facing your father after that?
It was the main interaction that it showed in the film was accurate. Uh, it was the it was the one time in my life, in my young life, that I ever stood up to him when he made the statement that he did when he picked me up on the highway, and I made the statement I did to him, and I'll let the viewers see that. But um, I, after that conversation that day, we moved on with our relationship. And my dad was such an important figure in my life throughout my life, and so to me the greatest star in the whole film was my Bible. I can't get it up here in the camera
That
where you can see it.
so that
Yeah,
Bible in the film is really your Bible.
that's my Bible. Yeah, yeah.
The
And
the thing that moved me with that scene when in the scene in the film uh where your wife sees the Bible on the picnic table and she opens it up and we
yeah,
see what your dad wrote. What did that do to you when you realized that your father forgave himself?
well, the incredible story uh, between my dad and myself and our faith walk. Um, there was no way they could tell it in the movie, and they said, "Look, we do this, Mike, and then it becomes a totally Christian movie." And so uh, that part was left out, and I was okay with it. I was totally okay with that. But I will say that God, in His mercy, intervened in a miraculous way that gave me proof, showed me that my dad was in heaven, and so it was pretty amazing. It's one of the things that I talk to youth groups about, other people all the time over the years, because it truly is one of my greatest blessings.
So your father never got to see you play at the age of 59.
He did not. No, my dad died in 1994.
What do you think he would have thought of you being on the field at the age of 59?
Oh, he would have absolutely loved it. He'd have been giving me all kinds of tips and guidelines about what I needed to look for, what I needed to do, because that's who he was in my life.
Well, how did the whole film come together? I mean, your story was all over the news. ESPN, ABC, everybody was talking about you, talking about this guy at the age of 59, being on the football team at a 3A school, 3A college. And I mean, what was it like for you at that time dealing with the press?
Well, it was something that I never bargained for. I didn't think there was any way that anyone was going to have interest, as I said, in a 59-year-old guy going back to play college football. But a young man by the name of Jamie Aaron was an AP writer, happened to be at Sul Ross on another story, totally different. They had no, in fact, he was leaving town and he got a call from one of his associates and he said, "Are you still in Alpine?" And Jamie said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Hey." And so anyway, AP writer gets the story and it goes everywhere. Well, I was inundated. I received mail from Japan. It was crazy. Well, then Hollywood stepped in, and again, this was something that was not part of my game plan. I really wanted no part of it. And the president of the college told me that William Morris and Company had 4 representatives there in Alpine. And he said, "You do know, as president of Sul Ross, I have the right, with you as a student, I can agree to the movie rights for this story." And I just told him, I said, "Look, as far as I'm concerned, this is like a 3-legged milking stool. It's Coach Wright, me, and you. And any one leg that's not there, that stool's not going to stand." And I said, "If you do that without my permission, I will not cooperate in any way, form, or fashion." I said, "If this happens, I don't know that it will, but I want it to be on my terms." And he said, "Okay." And so Mark Chiardi, that has made all those great sports movies, Secretariat, Miracle on Ice, Invincible, The Rookie, he came back to watch me play. And that's when met with him. We had spent the whole weekend talking, and just an incredible guy. He's still involved today, and but he's the one that kind of laid out the plan and the groundwork for the senior that people are going to see here in a couple of weeks.
Well, I love that, and I'm proud of you for standing your ground when it comes to Hollywood in that manner, and because hey, there's no story without you anyway,
No,
and
no.
so with all of the young people that you played football with, do you still stay in contact with any of your former and much younger teammates?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I have for all these years. It's been 18 years, and these young men have changed so much over the last 18 years. But there were things that they did in my life, and that I was able to do in their lives. That for some of them, we still talk about it. And a couple of them came back for the filming that was in Fort Worth, and yeah, and they're going to be at the premiere that we have September 8th in Bedford, Texas. There, several of them are going to be there. They're going to meet the actors playing them in the movie, and so it. It's been wonderful to have those new relationships with those young men, and now their families as they've moved on with their lives, and so it's an exciting time.
So, did you ever have a problem when you were playing at the age of 59? Did you ever have a problem with any of the teammates that thought maybe you were taking someone else's place?
Yes, there were a couple of them that took exception. They misread the whole thing, my motives and everything else. They were listening too much to what the media was saying, and they weren't watching me and listening to what I was saying. But um, for the most part, my teammates could not have cared less, um, about what the media said about me. Their experience was one-on-one with me. There were a couple of guys that felt like that I was strictly there for the publicity, and which wasn't true. And so it was one of those things that um, we didn't get worked out between us individually. A couple of those guys, and I was okay with that. I wasn't there to force myself on anyone. I was there to help the young men that embraced me and what I had to offer, and the wisdom, all the years that I played and watched football, and then the training I'd done of athletes at those major universities, and how I could help them to enhance and improve their game while at the same time trying to stay alive while I was out there.
Yeah, yeah, stay alive. Yeah, and there's a lot of that in this film, The Senior. And I have to bring this up because, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a very big football fan, and I know many of you, you watch pro football, but many of you love college football much more. Then there's high school football, but in Texas, high school football is, well, Mike, I think you'd probably agree. It's kind of a religion here, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I tell people, like when I was coaching at Nebraska, Oregon, they were always talking about the players would come in, and we recruited internet. I mean, all over the nation, and so different states players would come in and talk about how great their football was, and in Kansas or in California, and all. And I just tell them, look, guys, you don't understand. And even today, I tell people, look, they're I don't know how many. I think there's a little over 600 six-man football teams nationwide. About 270 of them are in Texas. 276-man football teams. They don't have enough kids in the school to field an 11-man team, so they play six-man. And they've got conferences. They've got their own league. I mean, football in Texas, you put the pads on when you're in the third grade. And so it's just different.
Well, what impressed me was, and because I grew up in East Texas, and it didn't matter what part of the state you were in, everybody knew the name of Permian High School.
Yeah.
Number one in the state year after year, 5A school. Basically, football players on that team were the same size as those in college and in pro sports. So anybody who went into face Permian was like, you're walking into hell. So, and you are
Yeah.
not coming out a victor with that. So, and you graduated from Permian High School.
Yeah. My senior year, we started all that. We won state championship for the first time. My senior year, 1965, and we started Mojo. We started that whole, winning tradition that ended up inspiring that book and movie Friday Night Lights. So yeah, there in Odessa was, it was football country.
Well, how big is their football stadium now?
It's, I think, Barrett Stadium. I think they've renamed that, but it's about 22,000, something like that. I think.
Yeah, it's just crazy how some of these 5A schools, you see their stadiums and you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's almost like if you had a semi-pro team in your own town. But ladies and gentlemen, this film, The Senior, is one of the best films I've seen this year. The message is absolutely fantastic. And Mike, what was it like when you found out that Michael Chiklis was portraying you in the movie?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic, and it was mainly because I had an opportunity to meet him. Of course, I found out before I met him that he was going to be playing me, and I was always impressed with his career, through the years. But whenever I actually met with him in person, and then saw his work ethic and everything that he put into it, it was so impressive. It just really was, and I was grateful. I was just so grateful that he had been selected to play me in the movie.
So did he ask, for particular scenes? Did he ask you maybe what your mindset or what you were thinking of at that time so he could really bring your character to life?
He did. The director, Rod Lurie, uh, asked me a couple of times different things, and it was funny in one of the fight scenes that it shows. Rod asked me, he said, well, what would you have done? And then I told him, and he said, okay, we're not doing that. He said, we're not going to do that. I said, well, I'm just telling you, that's what I would have done. But Chickless was always laughing at me, and he was. Here was the about Michael Chickless that no one is going to know this, short of being told by someone like myself. The quality of movie that we have because of the acting, and acting is everything in movies. These young actors in that movie, the incredible job that they did, it has so much to do with Michael mentoring them. He would be off camera, he'd be talking to them, he'd be coaching them. They'd come find him, asking him questions. I mean, the girls and the guys. And he always had time for them. He always had time to speak into their part, give them a heads up about things they might want to do different. And then they'd step back out there and hit a home run. And I sit and watched it. Eileen and I were there for 52 days during the filming. And so, but I was more impressed with that part of who he was than anything else that he did.
Well, one of the strongest characters in the film is actually your wife. What did she think of her being portrayed in the film?
Well, she just adored Mary Stuart Masterson. And again, the ultimate professional, Mary Stuart was just, Mary Stuart was so concerned about portraying Eileen in a manner that was, representative of who Eileen was. And she, in fact, and people won't know this short of me telling you this, but Mary Stuart looked at the original script and said, Eileen doesn't have enough presence here. She said, as a mother, a wife, I know the input that Eileen had into this, and it's not reflected in this script the way it is. They rewrote it. They went back in and added more truth from about Eileen's contribution to the whole adventure. And Mary Stuart said, "Okay, this is great," and she did a fantastic job.
Oh, she did a fantastic job in this film. Did your wife think you were absolutely crazy when you told her you were going to go back to play football?
That was one of the thing that so many people don't realize is that when I found out that I had a semester of eligibility left, then Eileen, our youngest daughter's just graduated and gone to the University of Tennessee for her freshman year, and Eileen's planning on freshman orientation. And we decided to downsize, and we're empty nesters. Our two oldest children are married, so we put the house up for sale and received the contract. So we had 30 days to get out of the house. So she's looking at houses, she's planning packing, she's planning orientation. She's ignoring me. She's thinking, well, the NCAA is going to tell him, he's crazy. He doesn't have eligibility. And then he's going to go down there and meet with that coach, and that coach is going to laugh him out of his office. And so I come back, and Eileen's got a list of houses for us to go look at. And I said, Eileen, we're going back to college. We're going down to Texas, going to, Sul Ross. And she just said, oh my gosh. She said, I cannot believe at 59 years old, you want to go back and try to play college football. She said, I feel like I'm married to Peter Pan. And then it hit me that I had never shared with her. I had never told her the depth of the regret in my life that losing that senior year had been.
There's that
And
scene. There's that scene in the film, which I'm not gonna spoil it because that was a very powerful scene, and the way that Michael Chiklis portrays you in that scene and the look on his face. When I saw that scene, to me it was like, it's like as men, we have the tendency to do things, and in our mind, we think we've asked, but we
yeah,
never did. You know what I mean?
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
we say it up here, but it never comes out here. Then people go, but, and
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
and that was that scene. And yeah, that, and then from there, I mean, it's just, I'm just going to say it's just movie magic from there. And it just, yeah, I love this film. I love this film, Mike, and I love your story. And for you, and really just a couple more questions here. What did your children think? Because I know there's a strong backstory with your son in this film as well.
yeah. You know, my girls were, they were both cheerleaders in high school, and they've always been my cheerleader. And they thought it was exciting. They just thought it was incredible. Micah, my son, he just wasn't crazy about the idea, but he got on board. He knew where I was physically until I got hurt, and then when I got hurt, everything changed for him, and that became much more difficult. And that part in the movie is true. He just because he called me and said, "Dad, have you thought this thing through? What if you wind up in a wheelchair or worse? What about Mom? This dream becomes a nightmare." And so we had that to deal with going forward. And so again, and it was one of those scenarios where I told the orthopedist, I said, "Look, I've got a PhD in Mike Flynt. I know my body. And so, you tell me what I need to do for you to release me to play, and I'll get it done." But quitting was never an option. I mean, there was no way that I was going to quit.
Well,
And
that's the story in this film that I really loved because I think it inspires, it motivates, it encourages people that even though you're handed news, and we do have to use wisdom with the news that we're handed, but deep down inside, you still can do and push a little further and see how far you can go. And to me, if you just step out there and do it, God takes care of the rest.
amen. Yeah. And that, I try to tell people, so many times about their dreams and to write them down, but, write them down in pencil, because they're going to change, and it's going to be things that you never saw coming, but it's still your dream. You have to modify it. You may have to do some different things, but you keep chasing your dream. You take ownership of that. And so that's one of the things I hope that people get out of this story, is that it was a marathon. It was 37 years, but it was still my dream, and God allowed me to fulfill it.
Well, I'm glad that he did because it's an absolute inspiration to millions of people across the country. And when does the film debut?
September 19th. It'll be in theaters all across the nation. September
Oh,
19th.
I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, in 2007, at the age of 59, Mike Flynt may be too old to be on a college football field, but not too old to feel the weight of unfinished business. Now, after nearly 4 decades, he returns to his alma mater to take the hit that changed everything. Again, bruised, doubted, and nearly broken, but he pushes for one more game. Not for glory, but for the teammates he lost, the family he fractured, and the ending he still believes is possible. The Senior is the inspirational film we need right now. Some of you have unfinished business in your own life, so maybe it's time that you suit up, forgive people along the way, because guess what? Dreams still come to pass. And again, ladies and gentlemen, The Senior debuts in theaters September 19th. Get your tickets ahead of time because this film, well, it's not only going to be a hit, it is a hit, and it's going to hit you right where it needs to, right into your heart and into your spirit. And Mike, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story in the film with me today. What an absolute honor I've had to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Ward, for having me, and it's been my honor to sit and exchange with you. I've truly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, many blessings to you and your family. I know you're also a motivational speaker, and keep motivating those young people out there.
Okay, I will. I certainly will.
Well,
Thank you.
ladies and
God
gentlemen, hey, well, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. And again, ladies and gentlemen, The Senior debuts in theaters September 19th. Be in that seat because you're going to enjoy one of the greatest stories ever told. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.